How you see overall future of Middle East under the Republicans?
We are looking towards potentially a new Middle East. So I must mention upfront that President Trump's agenda is more going to be more focused on immigration-related issues. But if I have to guess, I think no war. President Trump would never not like a war with Iran. That's a considered opinion in the United States. To the best of my understanding, that war is not an option. Regime change is also not an option.
How Qaeda made entry into Afghanistan and why Taliban are silent on not taking any action against these groups?
Al-Qaeda had developed a very close relationship with Afghan Taliban. They benefited from that relationship with Afghan Taliban and have started resurrecting some of their old units.
Where Pakistan stands in that relationship between Washington and Beijing?
US and China competition. Competition can be a very healthy thing as well. It allows both the sides to compete. It's not Cold War. Or it's not
Cold War.
Not Cold War, not like Soviet Union versus US.
So how in all domains Pakistan and United States bilateral ties and particularly trust-based ties could be made further advanced?
I think Pakistan-US relationship historically was dependent on military-to-military relationship. And the relationship can only grow when it is more comprehensive, when it is people-to-people relationship.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and hello and welcome to Program Inside in V News English. Dear viewers, there are important developments which are taking place in Middle East. There has been change of regime in Syria and HTS, which was a militant group, made entry into Damascus within no time, and finally 22 years long Bashar al-Assad regime was changed. That is the past story. News stories that Syria is moving towards a new direction. Recently, there have been talks between Jordanians and Syrian leadership. The world leaders all over the world, they are making different type of statements. In addition to this, in today's program, we will also talk about Pakistan-United States relations. We will also talk about entry of al-Qaeda and different international terror organizations into Afghanistan, that how these organizations made entry into Afghanistan, posing threat not only to Pakistan, but also to the region. And the recent statement made by Deputy National Security Advisor of the White House regarding Pakistan's missile program, that Pakistan's missile program can ultimately hit to United States. And a previous statement by the United States State Department saying that sanctions have been imposed on entities which facilitated development of Pakistan's ballistic missile program. In this program, we would like to assess and analyze whether these old statements that have been made by the United States administration will have any sort of negative impact on Pakistan-US bilateral relations. And finally, not last but the least, that what will be the new foreign policy challenges under the new Trump administration. To discuss this all, fortunately, we are joined today by a renowned international affairs expert, a professor of international relations at Washington-based National Defense University in the United States of America, Professor Dr. Hassan Abbas. Professor Dr. Hassan Abbas is not only a professor, he is a author of a number of books. And recently he visited Pakistan as well, where he delivered lectures at different institutions and gave some very valuable information and analysis to Pakistani audience and to the Pakistani students and to Pakistani scholars and policymakers. So despite his long journey back to Washington, today he has been very kind to participate in our program. Very good morning and very warm welcome in program Inside in V News English, Dr. Hassan Abbas.
Ji, Mateen Saab, बहुत shukriya. Thank you very much. Very kind of you.
Doctor, we would like to begin our conversation on the story in Syria. So, what is your assessment that this HTS, which was previously a militant organization, and its leader was on the list of the most wanted terrorists by the US State Department. He was also on the list of the United Nations. So within few days, the developments took place. The world has witnessed fall of Damascus. So tell us that how West is justifying HTS, which was previously a militant organization. Now HTS is the new ruler of Syria.
Thank you so much. Indeed, these are very important developments happening in speed of light, it seems. You're so right. No one was expecting this group and other militant groups to actually take over Damascus without any resistance, because Syria as a military, apparently it was more like a house of cards, but they had a military. They had support from Iran. Hezbollah was there. There were Russian forces there as well. So this has not happened in a vacuum, because the Russian forces were out before this group could move in. Hezbollah and some of the IRCG from Iran, they moved out very quickly, peacefully, if I may say. So there's more to it than what meets the eye. It's apparently coordinated effort. Let me put it like that. It's not sudden, and it's not that only one party, whether any Western party or any Eastern party is involved. It seems all had some kind of an arrangement. Otherwise, if it was purely US and Israel, which I think both are very strong players in this case, and if the Russian forces were attacked or the Iranians were attacked, things would have looked different. It seems everything was, in some cases, on the same page. Now, one example I would give is that of Afghanistan. Very similar things happened in Afghanistan. However, there was a negotiated deal, which was public. Everyone knew. Conversations were happening in Doha. There was a peace deal, which was signed between Mullah Baradar and Ambassador Khalilzad. US Secretary of State was there. In this case, my guess is, this is my calculated guess, you can say, on my assessment, that a similar arrangement was there, but it was not widely public. However, one other thing has to be kept in mind. It is not only one country or one group that has been directly involved in this arrangement. I think various multiple actors were at play. Turkey is seen as a big success story in this case, because as you would see, the first official public meetings were between the foreign minister of Turkey and between the new leader. And Turkey's, even United States, President Trump, who has not taken charge as president, but he has said already that Turkey is one of the big successors in this, success stories in this case. I think he still has to take charge, and then he'll have all the classified information. So he's saying more like on his guesswork as well, I think. But one thing is for sure, Turkey has succeeded. Another factor which is very clearly at play, that Russia has voluntarily, it believes, gone back, because they want a peace arrangement when it comes to Ukraine. And they don't want to be seen as disruptive in this case. They had strong forces. Their military and their big aircraft are taking out materials even now. So what I'm trying to imply is, and same is the case of Iran, there was no firefight. There was no fighting or bombshells or killings between Iran and this new group. And Iranians have already started calling this group not a terrorist group, but an opposition insurgent group or something to that effect. So it is surprising. But also another thing which we will see in coming days is there are 6 different groups which are very strong in Syria today. One group is in control, but there are other groups in south and east and north who have strong space. Some of the Turkish groups, some of the groups, the only group which has been strongly targeted so far is Daesh. As soon as Assad ran away, immediately there was direct US bombing on Daesh or ISIS camps. That has clearly happened. I think Israel has benefited from the situation by coming into Golan Heights as well as in other area, and they now control some of the most important water resources going to Jordan. So it is Israel is a beneficiary. US has more to worry in this situation, I would argue, even if it is part of this arrangement, because if terrorists, because you can never bet how some of these militants will act. I must add, so far they're looking quite transformed is a strong word, but quite changed. We are seeing pictures on the internet change of the clothing and the headgear of the top leader. But to give credit where due, he has said that minorities will have their own rights. We are not seeing attacks and killings of Alavis or Shias or some of the other minorities of Christians. Today there was an attack on a Christian a Christmas tree was burned, and there's a protest by the Christians because Syria is quite diverse. So sorry for a longish answer, but what I want to conclude is that there are many multiple layers of all this. It happens by some arrangement. If it all turns out that there is a kind of a representative government accepted by UN and there's peace and the proxy wars in the region have ended, that is not a bad news.
Oh, this is what you said, that proxy wars have ended. And immediate question is the fall of Damascus. Do you see that it's an end of Iranian influence and Iranian proxies in the entire region, including Lebanon and in Syria and elsewhere? As you said, that there was Revolutionary Guards withdrawn much before the movement of this HTS. So is this end of the Iranian influence on the region?
Just on a clarification point, yeah, Iranian forces went out just hours before Assad regime fell. But you're right. I think Iran is backtracking, or Iran is making a strategic move. They still have support in Iraq, where many of the militias, Iran-supported militias, are still very strong. Yemen, previous help had happened, and it is still there. But when it comes to Lebanon, and especially Syria, Iranian influence has, if, for the lack of any other word, vanished. But in case of Lebanon, Hezbollah is severely damaged, but the Hezbollah structures at lower level exist. So yes, Iran is trying to reassess, rethink. And I must remind your viewers that a kind of an arrangement that had taken place between Iran and Saudi Arabia, brokered by the Chinese, was an extremely important development, which was not seriously taken by the Western countries. It was seen as, and I've written on this, that this was very significant for the region, because both Iran and Saudi Arabia had decided, if not complete peace, that they had started talking to each other.
Exactly. Visiting each other, exactly.
And lately they had a military training, which was inconceived, which was unheard of. So that has played a role as well, I think, in the overall situation. But when Hezbollah was targeted by Israel, this was a different dynamic completely. Iran has internal pressures as well, where people internally are saying how much money we are spending on outside. And if you talk to Tehran, they'll probably have a different view. They would argue, to be fair to them, they would argue that because of the external threats, they had to expand their zone. Not to justify that and not to defend that, but this was a strategic move which worked well for them for quite some time. And now that they are pushed back, because Lebanese people are also not very happy with the Iranian influence. But still, Iran has support base in the regional countries. Apparently, I mean, I would argue, with change in Syria, we are looking towards potentially a new Middle East, which has made everyone uncomfortable. I don't think Saudi Arabia is happy with what's happening in Syria. Egypt is next doors. Many of these countries in the region are very worried about Muslim Brotherhood, and they see through al-Qaeda, Daesh, many of these groups, they see Muslim Brotherhood. When they hear al-Qaeda, they actually read Muslim Brotherhood. And these countries are very worried. So a lot has to be seen whether this new group in Syria is going to actually go by what they're saying. There was a UN resolution on this, and there was a UN committee which was giving suggestions about constitutionalism and all that. If all this happens in a peaceful fashion, with no violence, then this may usher in something which is totally unexpected.
Dr. Hassan Abbas, Democrats are about to leave White House. I mean, it's end of the Democrats President Joe Biden's tenure almost has come to an end. From the next month, January, President-elect Trump will take over office. What is the new vision of Republicans, Trump, regarding this Middle East? There have been lot of saying, there have been a lot of statements during the election rallies made by President-elect Trump that he will ensure peace. So, what is his vision of peace in the Middle East? Do you think that once he take over office as a president of the United States, there will be durable peace in the Middle East? And Israeli this attack on Gaza, there is already ceasefire in Lebanon. So, how you see overall future of Middle East under the Republicans?
I think that we are all anxiously and hopefully looking for future and for 2025 that peace will come back. But I think if you compare it with any previous year, there's less hope and more worry and more anxiety everywhere, including in the United States. President Trump had very clearly campaigned on a few issues, which were all internal domestic related. So I must mention upfront that President Trump's agenda is going to be more focused on immigration related issues. It is more going to be in inflation or economy related issues.
Domestic economy of the United States. So
foreign policy comes much later, and even in the foreign policy, if agenda number one or target number one will be resolving this whole the Russia-Ukraine thing. And
exactly.
One easily can be seen as people are saying this will be kind of unfavorable to Russia, but to an extent that Ukraine and Russia will be forced to or encouraged to have a settlement, so that the U.S.-Russia confrontation, which seemed to be warming up very gradually but significantly, will decline. Second major, and that will have an impact on Europe, because Russia's main threat or challenges for Europe, and U.S. relationship with Europe will come second. So NATO, and what is the future of NATO? Because President Trump has made strong statements about that issue. That will be the second big agenda. Third will be related to economy, about China and about tariffs, even to countries which are very friendly towards the United States. President Trump is already saying those things. We heard about Panama Canal recently, last 2-3 days.
Exactly. A very prominent statement that the United States will take over this canal.
Because US had previously handed it over to them or sold them, if I'm correct. I'm not an expert on that issue. The point I'm making that the top three, as you rightly mentioned and inferred, top three agenda items will be in Europe-related things or economy. Then comes Middle East. And for that, we have the example of what happened in the previous 4 years of President Trump. That was the Abraham Accord, where Israel, UAE, and Bahrain, and some other countries from Morocco also had lately joined it. Also, if I correctly remember, one of the African countries was part of this. They will try to resurrect it. And during the end of the Trump previous presidency, there was another major plan for a road network plus energy network from Gulf, South Asia to India, actually, but Gulf and going across to Middle East. And his idea was that if there's a peace dividend, if there's a peace dividend will be economic uplift, which most of the Gulf countries are really looking forward to. So my thinking is that yes, you may not see any wars, hopefully, but there will be, when it comes to Iran, there will be more sanctions, and there will be another effort to convey to Iran that their regional policy will be opposed. That is where President Trump will be, I think, very focused and hard on that. But if I have to guess, I think no war. President Trump would never not like a war with Iran. That's a considered opinion in the United States, to the best of my understanding, that war is not an option. Regime change is also not an option. But Iran's policies, which from US side seen as Iranian behavior, has to change. Then comes Syria and other related issues. I think US will probably go with its major partners. Turkey, the US relationship will play a major role. If President Erdogan can manage the situation in Syria, and if there is not further confrontation, that he will focus on that. On Gaza and all the human rights massive challenge there, President Trump has said various times, on multiple times, I should say, emphasizing that President Biden has not done well, which clearly is the case on Gaza. And he has said, if I was there, I would have ensured that there's peace and there's not this kind of violence that is taking place. I think President Trump is going to talk to Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, enforce peace, force the regional countries to play a more active role, and there's already talk of reconstruction of Gaza. I say it sadly because I think there's nothing left to be reconstructed, because the kind of misery and pain that people in the region have gone through, that is, I don't know whether it will be repaired in terms of whether it is possible to heal the kind of crime and the kind of violence that we have seen in the region. But I think
yes, please. Dr. Hassan Abbas, since you have an in-depth understanding of the origins of various international terror outfits, including al-Qaeda, then HTS, and then ISKP, and out of many of terrorist organizations, two particularly al-Qaeda and ISKP, and several other terrorist organizations have very deep presence in Afghanistan, posing a direct threat to the security of Pakistan. Currently, you are monitoring and watching and reading dispatches from Pakistan that Pakistan is under state of war. Pakistan is fighting this terrorism from across the border. So tell us how Qaeda made entry into Afghanistan. And you have also written a book on return of Taliban. Taliban are there in Kabul. They are not taking action either against this TTP, which is Fitna al-Khawarij, nor against this al-Qaeda and several other terrorist organizations. What is the reason? So two parts. One, how these organizations made entry into Afghanistan, and why Taliban are silent on not taking any action against these groups.
Thank you very much for this question. This comes more into my area of specific research and focus. So I'm more updated on this topic rather than the previous two, where I shared my humble insights. I think currently the big challenge, number one, from the Western perspective, is more on Daesh and ISIS. Al-Qaeda is also concerned, but Western academics and American academics, especially, and policy analysts, and I'm also of the same view, that Al-Qaeda at one level had merged into Afghan Taliban. There were marriages. Some of the old Taliban leaders, Bin Laden was out, of course, Zawahiri was targeted, as you see, and there is a debate still. Who spilled the beans about Zawahiri? Zawahiri was killed in a safe house of Haqqanis in Kabul. Somebody from the side had given the information, or some people believe Pakistan had shared that intelligence with the West, and that's how he was targeted. Al-Qaeda's leadership and the third-tier leadership of Al-Qaeda was believed to be hiding in Iran. I personally think that Al-Qaeda had developed a very close relationship with Afghan Taliban, and because of the marriages, alliances, Al-Qaeda is not necessarily operating as a full-fledged group in Afghanistan. However, I must say that there are scholars, and to be fair, some scholars are convinced that Al-Qaeda is now resurgent in Afghanistan because they benefited from that relationship with Afghan Taliban and have started resurrecting some of their old units. And if that is the case, this research is ongoing on these issues. If that is the case, that is worrisome. But that is what Taliban had committed to West in Doha, that they will not allow their space to be used against international spaces. And when they were pushed, they said regional spaces as well. Countries like Pakistan were saying, well, you promised West and the United States and UK and Europe that there will be no attacks from Afghanistan, or no activity will be allowed which enables attacks against the West. But what about that? We are next doors. And that is a tragedy that the Afghan Taliban are not helping Pakistan deal with Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. So clearly, that's what Pakistan's concern is. But I must also add that it's not that TTP is all coming from Afghanistan. TTP had built its spaces within what we used to call federally administered tribal areas. That area was merged into, FATA was merged into Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, but that merger was not successful because of the lack of investment, lack of professionalism, lack of resources, lack of interest from Islamabad. And because of that, because transition requires a lot of effort and planning, Pakistan did the right thing. by announcing that we will merge these districts with Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. I think that was one of the best constitutional and political decisions Pakistan made, no doubt about it. But then you have to work on that every day. And all the officials and others, scholars, analysts that I talk to in the region are very worried that that never happened. TTP has now come into areas like Kohat, Bannu. You leave out Char Sadda and it's next to Punjab. Behind that, I think Khyber Pakhtunkhwa government should not have time to do anything but to deal with TTP menace.
True.
And that's what they are not doing. Once we do the Pakistan, in this case, when Pakistan will do its job well, then you expect more from Afghanistan. Just to put all the blame on Afghan Taliban about TTP, I think is unfair. Because Pakistan has equally failed in dealing with TTP. So that it has to be from both sides. And then in the midst of all that, Pakistan invested in Afghan Taliban for 30 to 40 years.
Exactly, long time.
Long time. And after that, once the time to benefit from, and I was, by the way, always very critical of that approach. I think Pakistan had radicalized itself by supporting that. Pakistan has, I think, committed a huge mistake. However, keep aside the mistake. Once you invest in something, that was the time to benefit from it. And Pakistan continued to deal with Afghan Taliban as second-class citizens, if I may call that, or dealing with them in a humiliating fashion, not realizing that the lesson Pakistan wanted everyone in the West to learn about Afghans and Afghan culture and their honor and their way of dealing it, Pakistan forgot that lesson itself and tried to deal with Afghans in such a humiliating fashion that even those who benefited from Pakistan said, okay, we are on the other side. We are not helping you anymore. So Pakistan's time in the last week of 2024 for Pakistan to really reassess and rethink and develop strategies, security strategies, which are long-term and which are sustainable. And then you can only, once you have, and Pakistan has strong security forces.
True.
Professional Pakistani security forces are giving their lives every day. So they are not shying away. They are not being scared. They are fighting it every day. But it cannot be done by military alone. You need to have civilian law enforcement police forces who are very strong and powerful, which is not the case in Pakistan. You need intelligence agency which is constantly on the focus. When intelligence agencies start spending more time in domestic politics, they don't have time to follow the enemies. Intelligence needs total focus on this issue. And then comes the political will. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa government, Punjab government, others, the federal government, they seem to be totally, I may say, ignorant of the realities on the ground. I have not heard, when I was in Pakistan for 2 weeks, I watched television as well. I don't see any programs on TTP or how to deal with this issue. Everything is about domestic politics.
Domestic politics, exactly.
So which means there's no national debate and discourse on how to push back on TTP, how to de-radicalize, how to have a peace deal with Afghanistan. When the country is not invested in finding peaceful way to deal with this issue, it will lead to war and conflict, which Pakistan has had enough of war. That's how I look at it.
Now, coming back to Pakistan-United States relations, in recent days, we have seen two major statements coming from United States of America. First statement was announcement of sanction against 4 institutions, 3 private companies, and 1 national development complex for facilitating and developing Pakistan's ballistic missile program. Pakistan reacted strongly and rejected these all sanctions. Followed by this, then there was a statement made by the Deputy National Security Advisor of the United States from the White House, saying these Pakistan's missiles could hit subsequently or ultimately United States of America, on which Pakistan also expressed not only deep concerns but rejected this American notion. So to what extent these two statements, these two developments will have a negative impact on Pak-US ties at a time when Democrats are packing and new administration is making its way to the White House?
Before answering this question, I must mention that these are my personal opinions, and because I've just landed in US hours ago after like
True.
almost 3 weeks in Pakistan. I'm not fully updated, but my sense is that this is not a new issue. There have been sanctions against some entities before as well.
Exactly.
Long range missiles is a concern for United States, and there have been regular conversations between Pakistan and US. I can tell you a bit more on the history and the foundation of the relationship, which I think is very important for us to look at. Pakistan
Please.
has been a long partner and ally of United States in various stages in the last 75 years. Even today, Pakistan receives the highest number of scholarships through Fulbright scholarship. Pakistani
Exactly.
private sector also receives a lot of support. The Pakistani and US defense relations are quite active. I am directly involved in those things where Pakistani officers from military, Air Force, Navy,
Police, even bureaucracy.
regularly come to United States for various courses, 1 year courses, short courses. So there's interaction and training facilities and dialogue on defense and security related issues at all the time. This public posturing from both sides at a time when one US government is on the way out and the next is in.
Exactly.
Think I would not put too much focus on this at this time. I think Pakistan needs to focus more on the relationship with the next administration. I'm sure Pakistan knew well what is the potential consequence of the test that they made. It must have been a clear, thought out message. It might be a messaging. It might be thinking that before our conversations start with the new administration, let's show and reflect what we have already achieved and make it a point that future conversations will go from this point onwards, which can be an interesting strategic choice from Pakistan. United States, it's not a knee-jerk reaction from US. Such policy decisions, such statements come after very considered opinion through institutional processes. So I'm sure these will be discussed between the two. I don't think this will have too much of a negative impact. I think this is not healthy in a sense between the two countries. And I've read Pakistani statements who are saying India has similar capability and they have similar range, but that's not a concern. Pakistan has a long history of good working relationship with US. So, and Pakistan has been through the challenging situation of the what we call Dr. A.Q. Khan era and the nuclear proliferation.
Exactly.
Pakistan now has a far better nuclear safety measures and controls. SPD, one of the important institutions, is seen as a very professional, cohesive organization which is totally focused very professionally. So it's the concerns about proliferation are far, far less in the West about Pakistan than they were 10 or 15 years ago. So I think conversations and dialogue will resolve such issues. That's why I would recommend Pakistan to really focus on the next administration. What has happened has happened. I am not, to be honest, very fully aware of the impact or the range or scope of impact of those sanctions. That might be very limited. Pakistan already has access. That might be a response messaging from US that if you go on that path, that is not something which is conducive for a very friendly defense or security related relationship. So it's more of a messaging from both sides. I hope it will end here and the next administration will have a more creative relationship.
Since you are an expert of international relations, you have in depth shared your perspective on Iranian factor. Now, what about China factor? With China, Pakistan enjoys very close strategic partnership under new US administration, and as it has been already intimated that there could be more tariffs against Chinese exports coming to United States from China, and there are likely to be more tough measures from Washington against Beijing. So in South Asia, Pakistan is a country which has strategic partnership with China. What do you think where Pakistan stands in that relationship between Washington and Beijing? And Pakistan is in the center. There will be pressure definitely on Pakistan to review its relationship with Beijing. So how Pakistan will manage these all new things?
I think we must, one, be clear that its currently called global competition, US and China competition. Competition can be a very healthy thing as well. It allows both the sides to compete in so many different arenas. It's not Cold War, or it's not
It's not Cold War.
not Cold War, not like Soviet Union versus US. It's because this battle is more about tariffs, about economy, about technology, and about these range of things. There are many countries, India of all the countries, just concluded kind of a peaceful settlement with China on their border issue. The amount of trade that happens today, even between India and China, I think if I may not remember accurately, it was more than $100 billion, maybe closer to $150 billion per year. Sorry if I'm wrong on my figures, but it is significantly huge. And that even with tough Indian-China relationship, that trade was happening. So there are lessons in it on the side for Pakistan and Indian trade as well. But I'll leave that for another day. I think it's not that anyone who will be working with China or dealing with China will be seen as a persona non grata, or anyone who's close to China will be seen as an enemy of US. In fact, I'll give you an example. In many cases, when US thought that it had difficulty conveying some of the things to Pakistan, American diplomats went to China as well when it was trying to say to China, please, we think this is in Pakistan's interest. Pakistani friends are not realizing it. Can you also talk to them? And China helped. I'm seeing various conferences happening in the United States, which are not classified, but which are very important track to or very important closed door events, where especially and with involving Pakistan and South Asia, which America directly involves Chinese scholars because they want China to be on board. So there's no effort to corner China. China is too big to be cornered. China is a huge country with huge infrastructure and global impact. But West wants them to take responsibility in certain arenas as well, along with the West, whether it comes to aid or whether it comes to reconstruction or whether it comes to peace building. So Pakistan is in a very good position, actually, to act as a bridge builder. If Pakistan is strong internally, if Pakistan's political turmoil is resolved, I'm sorry, I have to mention that. If it is resolved, Pakistan will be in a far better position to be a bridge builder between East and West. It's one of the biggest Muslim countries. It is a rising Muslim nation. It is one of the top 5 when it comes to population. The $150 billion debt can evaporate in a matter of year or two if Pakistan's economy is jump-started. And then Pakistan can play a far more creative, constructive role as a bridge builder. That's how Pakistan should see itself. Keeping its relationship good with the United States and good with the East, with China. I don't think US can expect Pakistan to just close its eyes from its big neighbor China. I don't think that is the intention.
Talks of second last, we are gradually heading towards close of the program. In the previous administration of this President-elect Trump, he publicly spoke about the United States mediation between Pakistan and India over Jammu and Kashmir issue. So, which is a flashpoint in South Asia. So, what do you think that Trump will revive his initiative, will take some major initiative, forcing both Pakistan and India to sit on negotiation table and discuss this Jammu and Kashmir conflict, as he has previously spoken about it? Your thoughts?
I don't think there will be any major initiative in this regard.
No breakthrough is expected?
No breakthrough no US-initiated breakthrough is expected.
Okay.
Without Pakistan and India on board, without Pakistan and India talking to each other and coming to a point where they'll be ready to resolve their issues, no outsider can play that role. Outside role comes in when they act as a guarantor. And I think it is in US interest. And I think you will see some interest from US that there should be no conflict, because that conflict can be very disruptive from US security interest point of view, as well as from a regional context as well. So your question reminds me, I think this is time when global changes are happening for the region to come to a comfortable peace arrangement with each other. I think US will be among the happiest of nations if that happens. I hope I'm right.
Last, only, what do you think? What is the way forward in strengthening Pakistan-United States relation? This has been effort by all successive governments in Pakistan, but something happens. So, what is the way forward that there could be vibrant, strong, trust-based relationship between Islamabad and Washington? And Pakistan always believed that there should be strong economic and trade ties between the two countries. Pakistan be given access to the US markets to have its more export. But as you mentioned, your specialty in international relations, defense, and security. So, how in all domains, Pakistan and United States bilateral ties and particularly trust based ties could be made further advanced?
I think Pakistan-US relationship historically was dependent on military to military relationship, and the relationship can only grow when it is more comprehensive, when it is people to people relationship. I think the Fulbright scholarships are one arena which are
It's public diplomacy, exactly.
US supportive of support for various arts and culture. In my recent visit to Pakistan, I was shown that some of the major, not reconstruction, but what is the word I should use for some of the old historic monuments related to the great Sufi mystics, those shrines which needed repairs, which needed
Exactly, repairs.
US went a long way.
Revival and repair, exactly.
So that, thank you for reminding me. So that revival and repair of these big shrines and some historic locations has taken place already. These are the cultural relationships which are important, and we should not forget there is a strong and thriving Pakistani diaspora in the United States. Pakistan should just, Islamabad and that diaspora, majority of that is not on the same page because of the political polarization in Pakistan. However, there's more need for Islamabad and the Pakistani diaspora in the United States and in the West to be on the same page, to at least be to have a common vision of Pakistan. I think that will play a major role, because for many senators, congressmen, even the next president, when the Pakistani diaspora is very active and they look at things in Pakistan with a very worrisome angle, that's not good for Pakistan-US relationship. But going one step back very briefly, the strategic relationship between Pakistan and the United States, I think the security one also needs to be refined. Afghanistan is a big issue. Central Asia is another common area. Pakistan's relationship with Gulf is another avenue. Currently, Pakistan's potential to be a crucial player in the region is not fulfilled. With US-Pakistan relationship, more interactions between politicians. You remember in previous case, Pakistan continued to say that from the highest office, we are not even receiving a call from President Biden. Our calls are even not being taken. I think that was a very bad situation to be in. Leaders, military leaders, they need to be very choreographed and very careful in the statements that they make. And for the top level diplomatic channels, no door should be closed. And no, like the whole, I'm forced to say this in a sense, the whole cipher crisis between the former.
That was also significant, exactly.
It a big challenge. Because then that, even if something happens, those things, if they become part of your national narrative, then that reduces the space for engagement between those two countries. So that one has to be very careful in that. Pakistan has a very important role to play regionally as well as globally. And I would wish Pakistan and pray for the best of luck for Pakistan's success and prosperity.
Thank you so much indeed, despite your very busy schedule, and you have just landed in Washington from more than 2 weeks trip to Pakistan, and there are very, very important engagements awaiting your presence in Washington. Despite these all commitments, you spared few minutes and spoke about some of the very, very important issues confronting United States, Middle East, and Pakistan-US relation. Thank you once again. And dear viewers, goodbye and Allah Hafiz from studios till our next program.